Hi, today I'd like to talk to you about plywood and the different uses for plywood. One of the reasons why plywood is generally considered to be stronger than a regular board, and to tell you about your project that is coming up. So today, plywood comes in a variety of different thicknesses. And the thicknesses are different per each store, but it's typically within about quarter, half, and 3/4. You can get 1-inch thick plywood. But here is an example, and you can see the different layers here in it, how the grain's going one way than the other, and the different layers. There's almost always an odd layer of numbers. This one here has 5 different layers. Then you have this piece of plywood, which is thinner than the last one by a little bit here. It only has 3 different layers. And then I have a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, which has 3 layers in it as well, and it is just an oak veneer, plywood oak on both sides. Plywood can be used for the backs of bookcases, it can be used for the bottoms of drawers, it can be used for durability, using it to make a drawing board or whatnot. Plywood can also be used for subflooring in a house. It can be used for stair treads. The railroad uses plywood on their rail cars for skids to slide stuff in and out on. And there are different uses there. The reason why plywood is stronger than a regular board is due to the layers. So on a regular board, you have the grain and it goes one way. If the board is to split and break right down the middle, it's going to break with the grain. If the board is a plywood board, the grain on this layer is going with the length. The grain on the next layer is going this direction. So when you go to snap it, you're breaking something. It'd be like trying to break this board on the second layer, trying to break it this way, and the grain fibers are going to hold it together. The more layers a board has, the more strength that it has with it. That is why plywood is generally considered to be stronger than a regular board. Now you can get into different types of wood where plywood is not going to be as strong, but across the board, plywood is typically considered to be stronger. Each layer, back on the layers, each layer the grain alternates. So the first layer goes this way, the second layer goes that way, then the third layer, and so on and so forth. And it's always an odd layer, so that way when you look at it at the end, the grain is going this way on one side, and then you flip it over, the grain is still going this way on the other side. The project that I am working on for you in class is, I would like, and I'm working on cutting it out this week and next week, is a small little plywood mallet. What I'm doing is I'm cutting all this out on the CNC machine, and I will show you a video later on what that is, but it's just a computer numerical control machine. In other words, I'll program it to cut the shapes out, and it cuts it out for me. And in your project, you will receive the hammer and a dowel rod, which will be cut to length, and the holes will be pre-drilled. And I'm going to put a couple more holes in this one. This is my test hammer or mallet. And you'll receive some glue. Your assignment will be to build and finish said hammer at home. So that's going to be your project. Plywood, back on the plywood grades, you have just a regular plywood, and then there's what's called a marine plywood, and that's going to be a treated lumber, and it is set up to be an outdoor use. The plywood that we are going to be using is an indoor plywood, and so if it gets wet without a sealer on it, it will expand, because wood expands, and as it expands, it's going to break all the glue joint between it, and then it will start to delaminate, which is separate apart. So with that, I hope that you enjoyed learning about what plywood is, and how plywood is stronger than the typical wood, and the different thicknesses of plywood being around about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and you can get 1 inch, but usually that's a special order. That there are almost always an odd number of layers in the plywood, and that the layers also always alternate. Thank you. Have a great day.